Sometimes you find something in a video game that makes you think, what the I'm gonna pretend I didn't see that. This is why today we're diving into the 10 most disturbing images found in video games. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. Thanks to Scratchy McNuts for submitting this discovery through oddheader.com. There's no end to the madness in the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Alright, I'm gonna skip that one just because I do want to play that game.
Infamous creepypasta about the ghost of a boy named Ben haunting a Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask cartridge. And now the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe image is in a folder titled Zeno, which contains textures using the levels that take place in Zen, an interdimensional location studied by the Black Mesa scientists where the aliens that invade the facility come from. Was a shirtless G-Man with his nipples pierced supposed to appear at the end of the game? Maybe it's for the better we don't find out the answer. SWAT 4. Thanks to Bird for submitting this discovery on the Odd Header Discord. SWAT 4 released in 2005, where as expected you lead a SWAT team taking down suspects in a variety of missions, though one of the game's missions features a sly hidden reference to something else that's rather suspect. As in the A-Bomb nightclub area of the game, there's a poster on the wall of K-Relly, which appears to be a pretty obvious parody of the singer R. Kelly. The poster also uses the same pun Kendrick Lamar used to diss a different rapper 19 years later in Not Like Us.
Strike a chord and it's probably A minor.
The pun on this poster is likely referencing R. Kelly, K-Relly's illegal marriage to singer Aaliyah when she was only 15, as well as various other crimes that were rumored for years before they were later exposed in the documentary Surviving R. Kelly in 2019. Kind of crazy SWAT managed to call out one of R. Kelly's crimes all the way back in 2005. While I may have expected that kind of sick burn coming from a Kendrick Lamar song, can't say I expected to find it hidden in a SWAT team simulator. Then again, R. Kelly showing up in a SWAT team simulator maybe isn't the biggest surprise. The writing was pretty much already on the wall. Super Mario Sunshine. Super Mario Sunshine released in 2002 as the 3D Super Mario title for the GameCube. Still waiting on one for the Switch too. In the game, Mario finally gets a chance to relax on vacation, when suddenly evil Shadow Mario shows up and makes an enormous mess. And now Mario has to clean it all up with this flood device. In the game, the Goo Mario must clean up his map to each level with bitmap files in the data of the game that designates where the goo shows up in each level. If we were to look at these bitmaps in the data, they look like random ink splatters, though a few of the unused bitmaps in the game have some unexpected surprises. Some unused bitmaps contain notes in Japanese, such as this one that says stupid. The strangest though is this pollution map, which shows a creepy face surrounded by a piranha plant and a Goomba. I assume this was a developer f***ing around, as I highly doubt this was actually once a location in the game. This face looks more like it belongs in Super Mario Nightmare. Chill. Chill is a PlayStation snowboarding game that only released in Europe in 1998. There was also supposed to be a Sega Saturn port, which the developers completed and even sent to reviewers, but for whatever reason was never released. The game didn't make much of an impression on critics or players, evidenced by the fact no one watching this video likely remembers this game. However, data miners made a discovery in the files of Chill that would have likely garnered more attention if it actually made it in the final game. As in the files, there's a cut save icon, which looks like 3 breasts stacked on top of each other, and was apparently supposed to pulsate when animated. Damn. If they went with this save icon, maybe the game should have been called No Chill, or Based. They actually said that in 1998. Road 96. Thanks to Mike and Toaster for submitting this mystery through the Odd Header website and Discord. Road 96 released in 2021, an adventure game where he plays teenage hitchhikers trying to flee the fictional country Petria, so they never have to see its authoritarian president Tyrak ever again. However, some players found themselves wanting to flee a strange discovery they made in the game instead. As in the game, you dig through a box of newspapers covering some fictional events in the game world. However, one of the photos used for these newspaper stories isn't fictional, as it's a photo of the real-life American politician R. Bud Dwyer, and it's not just any photo of the politician. The photo actually has a haunting story, as the press took the photo of Dwyer moments before he shot himself on a live TV news broadcast. The event, which shocked everyone who saw it, occurred when Dwyer arranged a press conference to read a statement about the various crimes he was accused of committing, and then did the infamous act at the end of his speech. It's unclear why this image is here and whether it was done intentionally or accidentally, but honestly, given the enormous infamy of this image, I highly doubt it was a mistake, and if it was, that is one hell of a bad mistake. Medal of Honor, Allied Assault. Thanks to Butterdoge Star Wars for submitting this mystery on the Oddheader Discord.
Yeah, that
Allied
Bud
Assault
Dwyer
released in
thing is
2002.
crazy.
Known
That
for
Bud Dwyer
recreating
thing
many
is
scenes from the
crazy.
movie Saving Private Ryan in its depiction of World War II. However, Allied Assault differs from Saving Private Ryan in a number of ways, such as this Easter egg players can find of German soldiers dancing and doing backflips if you look at them through this window and press the use key. Not sure that's accurate to World War II. However, another discovery was made that may also not be accurate to World War II, as Butterdoge Star Wars found this horrifying face in the data. Butterdoge
Imagine
believes
you a
the
little
image
kid
could
playing
be
a
used
game
as
and that pops
reflection
up.
texture in the game. While it's unclear what exactly in the game this texture is used to
Yo,
reflect,
what's up, gaming
it seems
lover?
to reflect the sort of thing I've only seen
You
in
said that's
nightmares.
kind of sad. Talking about the Bud Dwyer thing.
Neops
Yeah,
Studio.
it really is.
Neops Studio is
It
a match
really
3
is.
mobile game that had a beta release in 2022,
Dude, imagine
which was
how
going to take place
traumatizing
in the
that is to see that
Neopets
in
universe
person.
with a story about
It's
reviving an
traumatizing to see it
abandoned movie
online,
studio
on
in
a
a
video
small
alone.
town. Only thing is, Neopets fans apparently hated the beta so much, Neops Studio's full release was cancelled and turned into a different game. Looking at the game's cutscenes on the Internet Archive, the game appears to be pretty kid-friendly, but not if you look in the files of the game, as there were apparently extremely detailed textures of what appears to be a nude woman with full anatomy in the nether regions. What kind of movie studio were we supposed to be running here?
Well,
The
that's
game then turned
wild.
into
That's
Neopets
wild.
Fairy's Hope, which eventually rebranded again to Fairy Fragments, which is the current mobile game that's out now. Well, hopefully those textures of this woman were removed when the game turned into Fairy Fragments, as I'm not sure what they were doing in the Neopets game to begin with. Is this what they were talking about when they said Fairy Fragments? Skullgirls. Skullgirls is a fighting
like
game from
Skullgirls.
2012 known for
It's
its
a fun
unique
fighting
art
game.
style, as well as one of the most
the
unique
artwork is
anti-piracy
amazing.
measures in gaming. As after beating the story mode, some players reported seeing the message, "What is the square root of a fish? Now I'm sad." This caused players to reach out to the game's Twitter page to ask what the strange message meant. And Skullgirls responded that it meant that they should buy a copy of the game instead of pirating it, as apparently the message is only supposed to trigger if the game detected piracy. Well, that's embarrassing.
So that's how they know
However,
if you
this
pirated the game.
anti-piracy trap isn't the only thing in Skullgirls that has left the players who saw it scratching their heads, as data miners found an unused test level background in the files of the game. The test level background looks like a pretty rough sketch of an environment and some random assets, including what appears to be actual writing on the says Test Poo version 1.0. 1.0? Were they planning other versions of this? And what were they testing exactly? You know what? I don't want to know. I guess one possible explanation is
Chat,
is
any of
here
you
to
got-
test if
any of
anyone
y'all,
data mined the game's
plays
going to ask
Skullgirls?
about it. And if that's the case, the test appears to be working, because here I am asking what this is doing here. Burnout Revenge. Thanks to Shad
haven't
for
played
submitting this
Burnout. I
discovery
haven't
on the
played a Burnout
Oddheader
game in
Discord.
forever.
Burnout Revenge released in 2005.
Dude, you wanna know what's
part of my
legit one of
favorite
my
racing
favorite
series of all
racing
time,
games.
known for its emphasis on intense speed and
gotta pause it.
explosive vehicle destruction. Despite the
my
many innocent
favorite
lives lost
racing
in it.
games, dude. And it was made by fucking Disney. It was made by Disney. It's crazy. I can't remember the name. It just slipped my mind that fucking quick. Oh my god. Was it Split Second? Yeah, that's what it was. Split Second. Chat, have any of you guys ever heard or played Split Second? The racing game. This is such a fun game to play, dude. If you have never played Split Second, go give this game a try. If you have never played Split Second, go give this game a try. Made by fucking Disney is crazy, but this is one of the funnest games you could play. Dude, it's like not only do you race other cars, the game actually get really difficult. But like you can trigger like these explosions, make items fall, that kind of thing. I gotta show you a trailer. Explaining it won't do it justice. I gotta show you the trailer. Hello, Princess Nix. How are you today? Happy Saturday for you. You know, this recommended page just made me look really bad. All right, well, I'm gonna type in Split Second. Don't tease me like that. Talking about a split second too, dude. Okay, chat. We will finish this video after this video. We will finish this video after we watch the split second video. This is peak. Understand, this is peak. This is peak. This is absolute peak. This game is peak.
My Shayla. My Shayla.
I need a remaster version tomorrow.
I was slaving over this for hours. Happy Thanksgiving, pimps! Do you suck at racing games? Do you wish that you could hit the better races with something more than a little love tap? Well then, fellers, do I have an opportunity that will change your life?
This is what the game looked like. And those are like the explosions and stuff that you could do. This edit is wild. This edit is wild. Dude, this game is so damn fun.
Split Second is a racing game where even the worst races can compensate for their lack of skill by dropping a goddamn nuclear reactor on everybody else in the race.
This game
Whereas
is
most
so
modern
fun.
day racing games go for realism, Split Second takes the Gaben approach. He said, quote, "If I wanted to hydroplane in a Honda Accord like a dumbass, I'd shut off the console and go outside. What are you, autistic?" Look up the quote if you don't believe me. You think I'd lie to you? Check out this power play.
He said it looked pretty realistic. Yo, the graphics do not look bad looking back at this.
Runs dead. But I agree with Santa because after all, why the hell are we all here if not to get away from reality? And when you turn on Split Second, you're going to a new reality.
You see the
One
little
that's
meter
got
behind
that
the
piss
car?
filter, that blue and orange Transformers color grading, a cameraman with cerebral
That meter,
palsy,
you
and you
build
can
up that
tell
meter.
it's from the good old days because the pay-to-win DLC caps out at $5. What? Mirage had $5 pay-to-win DLC? Damn. Guess the flat of the rat was ahead of the curve on that one. Check out this power play. Runs dead. Runs
Bro,
dead. God
this
damn,
kind of
runs
shit
really
would happen
dead.
all the
Jesus.
time
A
in this
reality
game.
focused entirely on drifting so that you could commit acts of domestic tourism. Before Disney hit a power play on their reputation and finances, and before BlackRock took over the world, this was their swan song, their last dance, their final fantasy. It's like a war, but there's a race going on. It's almost like a race. Check out this power play.
Yes, and they do the super cool animation when you
I
eliminate
finally
somebody.
did one without crashing.
Dude, this is
I don't
such
know what to do
a
with my
fun
hands.
game.
This one's for you, big pimp. Highway hypnosis is when drivers zone out because of the monotony of driving on a highway with no unique events or scenery to keep them engaged. This is why I get bored of most racing games. By the third hour, I'm always crushing first place with an 8-second lead on the guy behind me. I've played a lot of Forza. Don't come in expecting this, all right? This is fantasy right here. They might as well have a little My Little Pony trot across the trailer at this point because this, not happening. Whereas Split Second is like a windy mountain road. You're always one moment away from your wife cashing in that power life insurance check. And you don't have to worry about ever having a car that's just way superior to everybody else because they're all equally shit. But now let's talk about the feature that makes Split Second the GOAT of the racing
you see the little
genre.
blue
And it
symbols that pop
starts with
up?
my Split Second
Those are
motto.
things
Are
that
you
you can
ready? If
target.
I suck ass, you're going to pay for it. Whereas most modern day racing games have devolved into the landlord special, repainting the same walls over and over again, while leaving the interior smeared with the same shit and mold that's been there since the 2010s, Split Second took the chance of ripping Burnout's entire flow, then injecting it with the M-Bay virus. Because Split Second not only adds a copious amount of explosions, but it is also the very first Michael Bay simulator. As in, you get to play as the man himself controlling when, where, and how many explosives explode. We call these power plays or party poppers because I like to party. You following all this? All you
All right, let me see if I can find you guys a normal review right quick. Matter of fact, we finna watch a 15-year-old IGN review of Split Second. Dude, I'm telling you, try this game if you have not tried this game. Oh my God. What's the this video can't be higher than 720p. Yeah. This is a oldie. This is an oldie. Bro, you know the video when the highest option is 720p.
As much a Mario Kart for grown-ups as an arcade racing title, Split Second is as predicated on screwing other competitors as it is finding a perfect driving line. The premise is simple. As a contestant on the television show Split Second, you'll race against other drivers on a track designed to be destroyed. As you drift around corners and draft behind your opponents, you'll earn the ability to trigger power plays. These range from the simple, like a parked car exploding next to the track, to catastrophic chain reactions of chaos and destruction that can often change the course itself.
Yeah, like if you have like 1 bar, they do something small. If you have 3 bars, it's gonna do something crazy.
Split Second may have the most impressive destruction and explosions in a racing game. From passenger jets exploding across the tarmac as you race under a wing, to detonating power plant cooling towers, to collapsing train tracks, Split Second is a visual assault. While the game tries to throw out cues directing you where you need to be on the track, occasionally there's so much going on that it gets hard to navigate. Split Second's music is straight out of an action movie, but there's not a lot of variation, and eventually it can wear out its
You need
welcome.
PlayStation Plus
The
for
sound
Split
design
Second?
rivals the biggest action games in recent memory, though, as cars and explosions roar through some very aggressive positional audio. This is definitely a game to play with the sound turned up on a nice home theater.
This is what every single game
New
was
vehicles are unlocked by competing in various event types that range from normal race courses to elimination modes, where last place drivers are progressively annihilated. Then there's the seemingly Terminator-inspired survival mode, where the goal is to make it past a series of semi-trucks dropping explosive barrels behind them.
Okay, make no mistake, dude. This thing right here with the semi-truck
There's also the airstrike
super
mode, where you
hard.
avoid missiles from a malicious helicopter.
The thing with the
Yes,
semi-trucks is
missiles.
super hard.
The controls are focused on drifting and drafting, with no penalty for pinballing off walls coming out of a tight turn. There's a great sense of speed and impact, but the devastation rarely makes it difficult to control your car. The multiplayer is a lot of fun, but take note, you can only race with the cars you've unlocked in single player. Split Second's only real failings are some of the same problems arcade racers have shown for years. Computer-controlled cars are all over your tailpipe from start to finish and have no problems
Dude, the
rocketing past you
computer
and staying
in this
there.
game, the AI in this
Meanwhile,
game
a single
is
mistake in a
very
race led to
aggressive.
many occasions where I found myself in a vicious
AI
cycle
is
of
very
restarts,
aggressive.
a problem
Yo,
other
matter of
racers have
fact,
solved with their in-race rewind feature.
I didn't even play this
These
on
problems
PS3.
don't kill the game,
That's
but
how
they do
fun it was.
result in a
I
lot
did
of
not play
frustration.
this on the PS3. I played this on the PSP. This is also on the PSP. So if you got an emulator, download it.
In the end, though,
Try the
Split
PSP
Second
version.
has so much going for it that it's easy to recommend for kart and arcade racing fans alike.
Because that was the version I played the most.
The visuals
that
are
was
great,
version
the
I
sound
played.
impresses, and there's enough game between single player and the fun
Like I said,
multiplayer to
bro,
last you quite a
the
while.
AI
For our
in
full
this
Split
game
Second
is not
review, check
pussy
out
at all.
IGN.com.
The AI in this game is crazy. They will ram you. They will, dude. Play Split Second. Split Second is such a fun game. I'm downloading Split Second tonight. Split Second is such a fun game. Yo, Ace Todoroki, what's up, man? Yo, shout out to you. Dude, Split
Sometimes you
Second
find
is
something in a
such
video game
good
that makes you
game.
think.
Chat, if you get a
nope,
chance.
I'm done. This is why
Like I
we're
said,
diving
play
into
the
10
PSP
absolute
version.
worst
Go
Easter
find
eggs
a
of
ROM
all
if you
time.
got to. Go
Brought
play
to you
the
by
PSP
Factor,
version
an awesome
of that
food
game.
service that provides delicious, no-nonsense, quickly ready meals straight to your door, leaving us more time to find better
That
Easter eggs.
game
With over 27
deserves
meals to
a
choose from, your meals are
remaster.
delivered fresh, never frozen, and as easy as possible. Just heat,
Yo,
eat,
we're
and
just
enjoy.
watching
Head to
some gaming videos,
factor75.com or
buddy.
click the link down below and use code ODDHEADER50 to get 50% off.
I'm just watching some gaming videos, but I went on a tangent praising Split Second, the racing game, and then that delved into us watching a review of it, a 13-year-old IGN review of it. Play Split Second. If you haven't played Split Second, play it.
Off your first Factor box now.
One of the best racing games
Sailor
you will
Moon
ever
is a
play.
1993 side-scrolling beat-em-up game
One of
for
the
the Super
best racing
Nintendo and
games you
Sega
will
Genesis
ever
in
play.
1994, based on the anime and manga series of the same name. A mostly forgettable title derivative of games like Final Fight and Street Fighter, minus the fact it was one of the first games that let you play as Sailor Moon characters, which was more than enough for plenty of fans. The Super Nintendo version, however, did have an interesting Easter
Yo, I heard Sailor Moon has a fighting game, a retro fighting game.
egg, as by inputting
Or
a
a
certain
couple of
cheat code
moves
on
are,
this
like,
screen when
super
Artemis
duper broken.
appears, you'd get to see all of the
maybe
characters
having tournaments on
barefoot during their intro screens. Did Dan Snyder work on this game? Apparently, this Easter egg is a leftover from another scrap feature, which would have given the girls alternate outfits, such as the ability to strip down to their
I'm done
swimsuits.
playing Fortnite.
So while
It's the
it maybe
title.
wasn't as revealing as originally
Is the
intended,
description
if
still
the reason for
Fortnite?
removing the original
Let
Easter
me
egg was to
change
seem
that.
less pervy, they definitely backfired with that one.
Yeah, I was playing Fortnite earlier.
Dark. Thanks to Halsera for submitting
For a
this to
good
the
couple of
Unhitter
hours, in
website.
fact.
Realm Forge's Dark is a 2013 vampire stealth action game that, despite its perhaps interesting visual design, was met with devastating reviews upon release for its abysmally slow and frustrating gameplay, along with some incredibly bad dialogue, with Game Informer calling it at the time one of the worst titles of the generation. And appropriate of such a title, Dark happens to have one of the worst Easter eggs of any generation ever, as if you were to run to the basement of the nightclub at the beginning of the game, run into the bathroom and go into this stall. You can find a poster that appears to use the actual image of a real-life journalist on a wanted poster, saying he's wanted for a severe case of games journalism, with an extra bit at the bottom that says, "Notice, if you see this criminal, lethal force is authorized. Shoot on sight."
Oh, that's
Holy
wild.
The journalist in
That's
question
wild.
appears to be someone that gave Realm Forge's previous game Dungeons a scathing review, which by all accounts appears to be the justification for this public denouncement of the writer.
That's
Halsera
wild.
points out this Easter egg is especially heinous for several reasons, but mostly because it's likely flat out illegal, as it seems to have pulled off the civil offense of using the likeness of a real person without their consent,
Yeah, that's
as well
what I
as
was
the
about to
felonies
say.
of
I
being
feel
a
like you
death
can get
threat and a public call to
over
incite
that, like,
violence.
super
Damn,
easy.
guess Realm Forge doesn't like hearing anything negative about their games.
Like,
oh wait,
super
did I say
easy
Dark
to
was a
sue.
bad game before? No, I meant a badass game. Truly a ballsy and short-sighted move by Realm Forge, considering this could have very easily landed the studio in legal trouble. Likely only skirted by the fact that literally no one played this game at the time to notice it. Are you guys sure that critic wasn't onto something? Street Fighter 3. Third Strike. Street Fighter 3
I have
Third
played
Strike
Third
released in
Strike. I have
1999 for
played that.
arcades, with many later ports to follow throughout the next decade. The game
Yo,
wasn't
chat, do
initially
you guys want a
popular
Street
upon
Fighter
release, as it
6
was a
stream?
2D game in the middle of
Because
a
I did
3D
pick up
craze,
Street
though
Fighter 6
IGN
on the
named it the
Switch.
greatest fighting game ever made in 2022, stating its detailed character animations are still some of the best around. One character's animations, however, may have been too detailed,
Larry,
involving a
I'll be live
character named
tomorrow.
Oro, who's more than 140
Yo, you have a good
years
night,
old
man.
and has mastered the secrets of immortality. A secret I'd rather he keep to himself, however, occurs when Oro does his sweep. As for one single frame of the animation, you
Oh,
can see
no.
Oro's dom. And for those of you
Oh,
wondering
no.
if maybe this was just a coincidence and the animators just accidentally made it look like Oro's showing off his joystick, here's the previous frame in the attack that can reportedly be found in the beta version of the game, which puts Oro's coin purse out there for everyone to see. Glad they
That's
cut that one.
wild.
While Oro's surprise probably slipped by players in the arcade version, the animation got slightly more noticeable with each port of Third Strike released for each console generation, making this the
It's
only
wild.
Easter egg that keeps getting progressively
That
worse
is
as time goes
wild.
on. Thankfully, when Oro returned to Street Fighter V in an update in 2021, Capcom made the decision to finally give the guy some damn underwear underneath his robe. And apparently not everyone was happy with the decision. Personally, I've already seen enough Oros that I'll ever need to see again. Please, just leave the underwear on. Battlefield 5. The Battlefield series has its fair share of Easter eggs and is no stranger to the channel, with many players searching the games for months or even years to solve some discoveries. A recurring Easter egg in the Battlefield series is the game's Megalodons, the biggest shark to ever exist, which always manages to be more and more over the top each time they end up featuring it. Needless to say, fans expected a show when developer Niklas Ostron tweeted in March of 2019 that another Megalodon named Carrie was added to the game with the latest patch, and the first person to find it would win a tour of the DICE office. Players searched high and low for their chance to win until YouTuber E. Fredericks finally spotted Carrie on the map Twisted Steel, with only a 1% chance of appearing.
A 1% chance.
Wait, was that it? Did I miss something? Turns out no. Apparently this single dorsal fin coming out of the water is the Easter egg, and compared to all the other Megalodon Easter eggs of endlessly epic proportions, it all just seems a little underwhelming for a beast that scientists estimate to have been 50 feet long. I guess at least E. Fredericks won that trip to the DICE office. At least they could tell them to their face that this Easter egg sucks. Spider-Man.
Yeah,
Marvel's
that's so
Spider-Man
weak compared
initially
to the
released
other
in
ones.
2018 as an exclusive for the PlayStation 4, later released on PlayStation 5 and Windows. Despite being named one of the greatest superhero games ever made, the game contained one of the worst Easter eggs of all time, which only managed to get worse and worse as the story developed. The Easter egg initially began with developer Insomniac Games including a hidden proposal in the game, with the message, "Maddie, will you marry me?" on a movie marquee in the game's setting for a fan who requested it on Twitter before the game came out. Only problem is, by the time the game actually released, the fan revealed that he and Maddie had broken up and claimed that she left him for his brother. Oh, Insomniac eventually removed the Easter egg, but not before asking the fan if there was something they could replace it with. Except the Easter egg went even more south from there, when the Houston Press reached out to Maddie for her side of the story, and she said she never left him for his brother at all, and that actually the relationship was a toxic one, explaining the fact he proposed through the game was telling alone, as she never played video games and could never get him to do anything else. So while Insomniac thought they were doing a nice thing, it turns out all this Easter egg did was exhaust everyone with a bunch of baggage from a tumultuous relationship that everyone would rather move on from. So much for just trying to do a nice thing. Making this Easter egg especially awful, as it will probably be a long time before Insomniac ever takes another fan suggestion for an Easter egg ever again. And who proposes via a hidden message anyway? Oh wait. Prince of Persia, The Two Thrones. Thanks to Durebos for submitting this discovery on the Oddheader Discord. 2005's Prince of Persia, The Two Thrones is the sixth main installment in Ubisoft's popular action-adventure series. The game sold 1.5 million copies within its first month of release, and was praised by critics for everything from its story and characters to the level design and combat mechanics. One aspect of the game that was not praised was an Easter egg hidden in the fortress area of the game, as during the second Dark Prince transformation before the chariot sequence. By climbing up this random pillar all the way to the top, you'd suddenly hear this.
Sound team is composed of Alice Bernier, lead sound designer, and Lee Stidham, sound designer.
While many players thought this was some sort of glitch, it's actually a horribly grating Easter egg that endlessly lists off the game's audio department. You'd think the audio team could have came up with something a little nicer on the
and
ears.
the sound back for aggressive negotiation.
King's Quest II. Romancing the Throne. King's Quest is the fondly remembered classic adventure game series published by Sierra Entertainment, proclaimed in the early 90s to be the best-selling computer game series of all time. Less fondly remembered is a secret one of the developers managed to sneak into King's Quest II, despite the fact that King's Quest is frequently cited as being a children's series. King's Quest is actually an old-school text parser game, an outdated style of graphical adventure that was popular before point-and-clicks, where you could walk around the environment using the arrow keys and type into the text bar what you wanted to do, such as look at rock or pick up trident. Some argue the text parser offered more freedom to players than point-and-clicks ever could, though data miners were surprised at the sort of things found inside of King's Quest II's code that were permissible to the player. Uncovering the glossary of terms that the game accepts as valid, Sierra fans were shocked to discover that King's Quest II accepted extremely unexpected synonyms for all of the game's female characters. As you can see here, the game actually accepts and spits out responses when you type talk to bitch, look at or worst of all, talk to burping gutter holy sh. Other terms include old hag, and hosebag. Whoa, this Easter egg is so offensive. Sierra co-founder Ken Williams even distanced himself from the egg, reportedly saying, "I never read that Easter egg in King's Quest II. I'd had nuked it, of course." And if Ken claims to have never read that Easter egg, he probably also never read the alternate dialogue that occurs when you meet Queen Valenice, that could be reinserted with a single keystroke using the game's engine editor. That made this normally wholesome acquaintance a hell of a lot more unfamily friendly. Her red nipples are one of the indications that her warm thighs would welcome your tender kisses. Damn, guess they didn't get the memo this was supposed to be a kid's game. Then again, this was the same studio that did Leisure Suit Larry and Soft Adventure, so I guess it was easy to get a little confused. Perfect Dark. Perfect Dark is the classic first-person shooter by Rare released in 2000 for the N64, designed as a spiritual successor to Rare's hugely successful GoldenEye 007. The game was praised for having levels far more detailed than the original GoldenEye, though one detail in the levels caught players especially off guard. As eagle-eyed players began to notice that on every level of the game, they could find a hidden wedge of cheese in extremely difficult to notice spots. After players found what they thought was every piece of cheese in the game, nothing happened, leaving players pulling their hair out over what the wedges of cheese could possibly mean in the game, with many assuming it was yet another troll by Rare to drive players crazy, like the previously covered unexplained question mark in the ceiling in the warehouse level, or the piece of chocolate behind the bars in Conquer. For 16 years, players wondered what these cheese wedges could mean, until finally an artist on the game, B. Jones, revealed an explanation in a video uploaded to Rare's YouTube channel. According to B, the cheese's existence was simply a reference to a comment they made to another artist, as B saw a plane the artist was designing for the game, and saw a doohickey on the plane that B said looked like a wedge of cheese, and thus a piece of cheese was hidden on every map as the artist's signature. So after 16 years of obsessing about this mystery, it means Jack. Monterey Jack. Honestly, if it was a troll from Rare, I think we'd be a lot shorter off. Counter-Strike. Global Offensive. Counter-Strike Global Offensive, better known as CSGO, is a 2012 online multiplayer tactical first-person shooter developed by Valve, creators of Steam and the highly popular Half-Life and Portal series, which are both desperately due for new, fuller installments. Fortunately, in 2018, Valve at least gave Counter-Strike fans something new, and introduced a Battle Royale mode to Global Offensive called Danger Zone, and it didn't take long for something to immediately catch players' eyes, as by traveling to the easternmost edge of the map, they could find an area called Black Site that had a building with 4 suspiciously numbered rooms. Most curiously, players noticed that the 3 had fallen off the 3rd boarded up door, which could only possibly be alluding to Valve's legendary elusive Half-Life 3. To get inside the room, all they had to do was go through door 2, which connected eager players to the 3rd apartment, where they found a computer set up. They quickly found by hanging out in front of these computers for more than 2 minutes straight. A tone would suddenly play, followed by a woman's voice spouting random words.
Papa, golf, Papa, whiskey.
Immediately, several players began to crack the code and figured out the first message used the NATO phonetic alphabet. With the initial message decoded, they were given PGP W50 and SMS 757, both of which were two types of encryption used for making codes. Players then figured out if they used PGP encryption to translate the rest of the message, they would end up with a hex value for every word. And when they translated those values using an SMS decoder, they got this message.
This was a triumph. I'm making a note here. Huge success.
Which is a reference to the iconic song Still Alive that plays at the end of the original Portal.
Making a note here. Huge success.
Valve fans everywhere rejoiced as they realized the 3 outside the building wasn't a reference to Half-Life 3, but actually a reference to Portal 3, another long-awaited installment from Valve since Portal 2 released over a decade ago, as they clearly uncovered another alternate reality game teaser for the next title in the series, where players would have to look for clues outside the game, not unlike the same ARG players discovered years back in the original Portal that led up to its sequel Portal 2. Players began combing through the game looking through every nook and cranny for more clues, until the official CSGO Twitter tweeted that discovery was just an Easter egg and not intended to be anything more. Oh, come on. You put a 3 outside the door and everything. It's already hard not to get your hopes up, and then they have to go do something like this. We're never going to see a 3rd title from Valve, are we? The new Tetris. Tetris is a game everyone and their grandmother has heard of, being released on more platforms than any other game ever. It also has a movie coming out this month on Apple TV Plus about the crazy story of its release. The new Tetris by H2O Entertainment was an attempt to add some freshness to the series as a Nintendo exclusive in 1999, with some new gameplay mechanics and a soundtrack that left most critics fairly impressed with the team at H2O. One person who wasn't impressed with the team, however, was the developer who left their endless rant in the game's code that hackers managed to uncover shortly after the game's release. The more than 1,000 word rant, labeled Dave Rant from lead programmer David Preedy, begins by saying it was a fun time coming to San Francisco to work on the new Tetris, except there were a few problems. Dave says his producers sucked, saying all he did was sit around and play StarCraft and EverQuest and make pointless Excel sheets. He then targets a Nintendo employee for throwing off the team's work after he told him the higher-ups that the game's art wasn't unisex enough. He then shifts his focus to the game's composer Neil Voss, saying he's the laziest music guy he thinks there is, and that despite the end result was amazing, everything was last minute like pulling teeth. He then says he's leaving H2O to go work at 3DO, saying his time at H2O was some of the most fun he ever had, before saying this game sucks. Overall, seems like a success for David, although there's another rant directly underneath it labeled Mick Rant that lists Lupin's 50 most hated things, which is actually 56 things, and may just be one of the worst things that I've ever read. While there may be some decent criticism to find among Lupin's many complaints, Lupin spends most of the time sounding like a complete asshole, focusing aggressively on things like black women's hair, spandex pants where he can examine people's unmentionables, which he describes as offensively as possible, or how people with too much stuff in the rear windows of their car he should be allowed to shoot. The Lupin then goes on to complain about not being able to run over bicyclists, and the idea to commit a terrorist act at a festival for female artists. Sounds like this guy has some problems. Lupin even lists 35 as racist people, and the crap that they spew out. The irony seems to be lost. And then that's followed by an ASCII art of mushrooms, a Canadian flag with a maple leaf, and another kind of leaf I can't display. Wow. Apparently the team was also convinced these messages weren't going to be found for years, except they were found and shown around the internet only 3 days after release, which instantly landed the entire company of H2O in hot water with Nintendo, with H2O closing a couple years later. And David said he was going to leave for 3DO, which closed its doors right around the same time. So really, no matter which way you try to crack it, this egg is just straight up rotten in every way imaginable. And thanks again
You
to
wanna
Factor
go
for
play
sponsoring
Blast?
this video.
Hey.
If you're like me, you may
Watch
have a
this at the
busy
same
schedule.
time.
It seems like
Awesome,
there's never
Larry.
time to
Thank
make
you
a
so
meal
much for
even
hanging
grab
out,
a
bro.
bite. Enduring horrible Easter eggs can be a full-time job, so when Factor sent us a bunch of freshly prepared, non-frozen meals that we could quickly throw in the microwave for 2 minutes, it simply made sense. Not only are the meals fast to make, but one mystery. Sometimes you find something in a video game the developers made sure will never be found again. This is why today we're diving into the strangest patches and updates that were ever found in video games. Stellar Blade. Stellar Blade is a super dope game I've sunk a lot of time into recently. Released in early 2024 for PlayStation 5 and soon to be released for PC in June this year. The game is a post-apocalyptic adventure where a soldier named Eve is sent to defeat an invasion of mysterious creatures called Nativas. Although much of the attention at release centered around Eve and her portrayal. Though personally, I think Eve is a super fierce and empowering leading lady in a super kick-ass adventure. However, another more unusual controversy also surrounded the game at release. As when players installed the game on day 1, they received a patch with a note that said, "Fix some problematic text in the graffiti drawn on the walls in Zion." Not exactly the first thing you want to see when you install a game. Turns out this was referencing tweets like this one posted by Lance McDonald, who shared that in the Zion location next to where you can trade with the shady info dealer Roxanne, there was graffiti on the wall reading "hard," right next to the letter R. Yeah, look at that closely. Some have suspected that this was maybe an unfortunate joke that was supposed to be referencing Roxanne being a badass bee you don't want to mess with. But having played the game as much as I have spotted the same hard graffiti in some other innocuous locations. And given the developers are South Korean and work closely with Sony, I'm going to assume they weren't purposely trying to make a blatant reference to a slur, and that this is maybe a super unfortunate cultural oversight that led to one incredibly awkward patch update. Still a great game though. The Sims 4. The Sims 4 is the most recent main installment in the social simulation series, released in 2014. While we've certainly covered some unbelievable discoveries in The Sims before, such as what happens under the covers when the Sims woohoo, or what appears to be a removed ability to microwave pet guinea pigs, it may not be as creepy as what Sim 4 players had to experience after an update to the game. As in August of 2022, EA issued a patch to the game, which added features such as body hair and new wants and fears. Well, it definitely added some new fears, not just for Sims, but also for players. As after the update, players reported their Sims wanted to date their family members, such as one player who reported their Sim wanted her son to be her boyfriend, another player who said their Sim wanted to ask out his twin sister, or this player whose Sim wanted to ask out her father. Unsurprisingly, EA agreed to patch out this bug as soon as they found out about it, and afterward updated the patch notes to say the ask to be a boyfriend/girlfriend feature now only targets appropriate Sims. That's a relief because I'm sure everyone just wanted to play a normal game of The Sims 4, not The Sims 4 Inbred Edition. Dead by Daylight. Dead by Daylight is a popular multiplayer horror game where you can choose to be a killer hunting down victims to impale, or one of the victims screaming in terror. The game is known for its crossover DLCs with other horror franchises. However, the Silent Hill DLC added a bit of an unusual controversy to the game. The DLC released in June of 2020, adding Silent Hill character Cheryl Mason as a survivor and the Executioner as the killer. The Executioner, also known as Pyramid Head, is one of the most popular Silent Hill characters, usually seen cosplayed at every major gaming con, and apparently also one of the thickest, as once the DLC released, Dead by Daylight players couldn't help but point out how that ass looked underneath his robe, quickly making Pyramid Head thirst trap moves. With an ass like that, players were probably hoping to be captured by Pyramid Head. However, players wanting to get the DLC solely for that pyramid ass were sorely disappointed, as shortly after the DLC's release, angry Pyramid Head stands made the accusation that the developer nerfed his ass in an update, as it appeared to be smaller than before. Polygon reached out to the developer and got a response from the game's director, who denied that they touched Pyramid Head's ass, but admitted they patched the game to make changes to his apron, which perhaps created the illusion of a smaller badonkadonk. Ending with, we leave it up to our players to discuss whether the change in garment has had a significant impact on his butt, and how that will affect his performance as a killer. Well, obviously this would have an enormous impact on him as a killer, considering now he can no longer knock out other players with that ass. Horizon Forbidden West. Thanks to Kep for submitting this discovery on the Oddheader Discord. Horizon Forbidden West released in 2022, which
This is
stars
one of
one of my
those games
favorite
that I
game
only played a
characters,
little bit
Aloy,
of,
as she fights
but I
robot
enjoy what I
dinosaurs in her
played.
quest to save the world. Horizon Forbidden West also provided some serious Aloy fan service, though maybe not intentionally, as shortly after the game released, the Spanish YouTuber Axel Sparta discovered that by using the photo mode and zooming in while Aloy had on a certain set of armor, you could see that she had extremely detailed Aloy OLEDs, and she looks a little cold, which Sony apparently never wanted anyone to see, as they issued a copyright claim to get the video taken down, and then
he got
patched
hit with a
Aloy's
copyright
extra
strike.
assets out of the game. While the video was eventually
What?
re-uploaded to YouTube without issue, it makes sense that after this, some fans believe the game should be
Bruh.
renamed to Horizon.
What? That dude got hit with a copyright strike. That's crazy. And by Sony, dude, it's over with. That's crazy. Dang. Over with.
Spanish YouTuber Axel Sparta discovered that by using the photo mode and zooming in while Aloy had on a certain set of armor, you could see that she had extremely detailed Aloy OLEDs, and she looks a little cold, which Sony apparently never wanted anyone to see, as they issued a copyright claim to get the video taken down, and then patched Aloy's extra assets out of the game. While the video was eventually re-uploaded to YouTube without issue, it makes sense that after this, some fans believe the game should be renamed to Horizon Forbidden Breast. Thanks to Kiki Bulby for documenting this discovery that was never meant to be found, and for showing us how much extra time the developers over at Guerrilla had on their hands. Portal 2. Portal 2 released in 2011 from Valve, and while seeing a third installment in the series seems as unlikely as Half-Life 3, there is still the pirate version of Portal 2. And no, I don't mean a
think I'm on,
pirated
like,
illegal
level
version of the
17
game.
or
I'm
something.
talking about the version of Portal 2
On
that
the
uses
first
literal
Portal.
pirate speech. As for some reason, on October 31st, 2018, 7 years after the game's release, Valve issued an update to the game that included translations for a pirate language setting. However, it doesn't appear the pirate setting was ever finished, as it can't be accessed in the game's default language settings. Though if you launch the game with the launch parameter -language pirate, you may find yourself saying "shiver me timbers." With this setting, some of the game's text is changed, such as the options here like quit being changed to abandoned ship, and some of the subtitles for the voice lines are now translated into pirate as well. It remains a mystery why Valve decided to randomly add an unfinished pirate language
funny.
setting to
It seemed
Portal
like that would've
2,
been a
as
very
it
cool
wasn't
Easter
added
egg.
on International Talk Like a Pirate Day. That's September 19th. And it doesn't appear to be part of an anti-piracy measure or any other known discovery. What I can say is that it is unfortunate this feature was never properly finished, as it definitely teases what could have otherwise been an amazing pirate adventure. For letting us down for a new way to play Portal 2,
Dude, I can
someone
imagine
ought to
how
be walking the
popular-
plank for abandoning ship on this one. Assassin's Creed
Full
2.
run-throughs of
Assassin's
Portal
Creed 2 released
2
in
would've been.
2009 and was popular enough to get remastered in 2016, part of Assassin's Creed the Ezio collection. And with the remaster's new fidelity, fans could enjoy the game at a higher resolution than ever, noticing plenty of details they hadn't before, as well as a number of glaring issues that marred players' experience at launch. In particular, in an early cutscene where Desmond first starts reliving Ezio's memories, many players were distracted by this bizarre-looking dude in the background.
Yeah, that dude was ugly.
Is he okay? Developer Ubisoft seemed to be just as creeped out as everyone else, and issued an update a month after the game's release that removed the creepy guy from ever appearing at all, with the patch note saying that the weird NPC face was fixed. Guess the game wasn't the only thing that got a facelift. At least we can rest easy knowing we won't see any more of this guy ever again. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 released in 2022. Oh wait, this is about the Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 released in 2009. Kind of confusing to give them the same name. In Modern Warfare 2 released in 2009, a rather unexpected discovery was found in an odd place
Love
3
Modern
years
Warfare
after the
2.
game's
That was
release.
my first
As on the
COD.
multiplayer map Favela, there were some paintings hanging on the wall of the bathroom. While the paintings may have seemed innocent at first glance, they hid a message that was offensive to the players who noticed it, as in the frame surrounding the paintings scenes was Islamic text, which when translated reads Allah is beautiful and he loves beauty. Khaled Q8 on YouTube uploaded a message to the developer Infinity Ward in 2012, saying the picture frames were deeply offensive, as it's considered disrespectful to say Allah's name in the bathroom or in any other impure space. In response, Activision swiftly apologized and temporarily removed the map from the game, and re-released it later that month with a new patch that included taking the text out of the frames. While the messages on the frames in the bathroom may have been a mistake, it is suspicious the original frames contained this message at all, seeing as it almost looks like it was purposely placed in a way that wasn't meant to be noticed, which unfortunately it was, only after 3 years of it being there without anyone saying anything. Good on Activision for making things right with the Muslim community and not having a hidden reference to Allah in a room where people do their business, as that's pretty much the last place that Muslims would consider a place of worship. The Quiet Man. The Quiet Man is a game released by Square Enix in 2018 on PC and PlayStation 4 that switches between live-action video and beat-em-up gameplay. In an interesting move, the game follows a deaf protagonist, so it was released with no distinct sound or dialogue, which confused both players and critics alike. Without sound, you make your way through repetitive, awkward combat sequences with no context as to why you're beating up all these goons in the first place, confusing things even further. The same character models are reused over and over, and the same actress plays both your dead mom and the woman you're in love with. So are we just beating up the same guys repeatedly? Is that my mom or my crush? And why do we buy a hot dog only to leave it by the guys we beat up? Players who were deaf or hard of hearing also didn't seem to enjoy the game, with many saying the game's portrayal of being deaf was inaccurate and pointless to the game. Even the publisher Square Enix seemed to recognize how bad The Quiet Man was, including negative quotes from reviews in a Japanese trailer. This made it seem like Square Enix had accepted the failure and threw in the towel with The Quiet Man, when unexpectedly they issued a downloadable update 1 week after the game came out that added sound and dialogue to the game after players beat it. Doesn't that defeat the whole point of the game? Many speculated this was done as a way to make up for the negative backlash the game received, although the developers later claimed the DLC with sound was always part of the plan, to see if players' impressions matched the actual story of the game. Right, because confusing your audience to the point of frustration is always a great business strategy. Unfortunately, this update changed nothing, as the game remained an enormous mess with lots of issues, and given the experience everyone had playing The Quiet Man the first time, not many were interested in playing it a second time. Even worse, players still had to get through The Quiet Man at least once without sound in order to unlock the sound mode. And why wasn't it just unlockable when the game launched a week before? This whole DLC thing still seems kinda odd. Then again, all this does. Worst of all, even after unlocking the sound mode with subtitles, the story still doesn't make any sense. I think I'm starting to see why they decided to take all the sound out of the game. Sports Story. Thanks to Professor Boss and Silly Aaron Man for submitting the discovery on the platform formerly known as Twitter. Sports Story came out in 2022 for Switch in a surprise shadow drop from developer Sidebar Games. The game is a sequel to the RPG adventure game Golf Story, this time adding soccer, cricket, BMX, and volleyball to the mix, as well as a bunch of bugs and glitches, as the game appeared to be rushed in order to pull off the shadow drop. However, that became even more apparent once players made discovery out of bounds of the game, as players who clipped out of bounds found a secret room. Inside the room was an office full of people who said they were the developers of a game called Golf. These developers didn't appear to be having the best time, as they explained their game has a troubled development, and someone keeps requesting new features and that they should have made the game work before adding them. The developers then fight about the dialogue they're writing before someone says, "I wish you would act like a whipping boy for once and actually do something." Another developer says they become despondent and went to the depths to accomplish impossible programming tasks, and that their work would probably end up getting cut, before the developers argued about the cutscenes not working. Guess we weren't supposed to know how stressed the developers were over there at Golf, as the game was quickly patched to block access to the room. However, players still found a way in, though all the dialogue was altered to make them sound happy.